All right, so you want to drop a small block forward off in the Fox body. I got a list of things that you will need. This video will mainly be focused towards the Fox body guys that are trying to go with the normal EFI setup with the old Ford EEC computers. And for the carburetor guys, it's kind of going to be a much easier swap than the EFI setup, especially if you got that carburetor tuned right. All right, so what I'm going to do is get Sally bagged out, and we'll get some good visuals and stuff like that, and then we'll also look at some stuff on the computer so that you'll know where to go look at. All right, let's first talk about what we don't need. For the cars that have a manual, I do believe that they'll work, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if they do work, how long they'll hold up. Number one, that 4-cylinder is more than likely going to have an automatic in it, and you will not need that, especially if you plan on running a T5. So you won't need that the automatic shifter, the bezel that bolts it down, and the transmission. You can get rid of all that, sell it, whatever you have to do. All right, so number two, since we're already in the car, this computer that comes to power that 4-cylinder is right over here. You will not need that. You need to get rid of it. To my knowledge, there is no way to tune that 4-cylinder computer to run that V8 motor. All right, before we go up under the hood, let's go to the back of the car. Most of y'all know these cars have a 7.5-inch rear end in the back. Also not sure how long that'll hold up, so I would just recommend going with an 8.8. If you do not have experience with building an 8.8, I would recommend you buying an 8.8 and taking it to somebody, or find you somebody that's trustworthy that you know can build an 8.8 and just buy it from them. Drive shaft from a 4-cylinder to a V8. If that car originally had an automatic transmission, that drive shaft would not mount up. Now for the T5s, I'm not sure. That's something you'll have to try if you don't want to spend money for another drive shaft. Okay, since I'm talking about up under the car, 4-cylinder and V8 fuel lines are different. We did not completely change out the fuel lines. I think what we did was just run some fuel lines, some rubber fuel line up from under the car up to the fuel rail. It was kind of a lot to do with all of that, and we were trying to go like a cheap route. We didn't feel like removing all of that fuel line. Also, speaking of the fuel system, I would probably change that fuel pump, because from my memory, I do believe that we had to change it because it made the car out of funny with that 4-cylinder fuel pump in it. Honestly, I would probably throw an Aeromotive or a wall barrel or something, whatever it's called. I would throw that in the fuel tank just in case you want to do some upgrades later on down the road. All right, now that we got all of that simple stuff out the way, let's get to the engine and transmission. All right, EFI guys, that motor is no good if you don't have that V8 harness to run that motor. If you are fond with Marketplace and you like to be on eBay, then you'll be in luck. You can find some stuff from eBay and Marketplace for these Fox bodies. All right, so I'm gonna go to eBay and I'm gonna just type in T5 transmission. And you might wanna throw in, Fox body somewhere in there, or Mustang. So we got 94, 95, remanufactured. Here's one right here. I believe that's gonna be for a Fox body. So obviously you'll be looking for a 10-spline T5 transmission and 28 spline on the back. And obviously if you know somebody with a Fox body T5, then it'll be a no-brainer to just go that route. All right, something else we can also find on eBay is a harness for a Fox body. We got one right here, 89 Mustang to a 93. $500, but like I said, if you're on Facebook Marketplace too, you can also find those on there, and you can probably get it for much cheaper. Before I assume that you will just be running a T5 behind that motor, if you are running a T5 or an automatic, the T5, you want to go with an A9L, and the automatic, you want to go with an A9P. Now, you might be in luck. If you happen to be running a T5 and you can't find an A9L, to my knowledge, you can tune an A9P to run a stick shift car, but you can't tune an A9L to run an automatic. Also, what you should know is if you find in harness and they say it's from an 88 Mustang, I probably wouldn't get that harness because it's for a speed density car. And when you start modifying those cars, you have to tune them and stuff like that. And these days it's difficult to find someone to tune a Fox body computer specifically. Now, if you can't find any other harness other than that 88, then you can just go with the mass airflow conversion kit from LMR. That 4-cylinder harness that needs to come out of here is gonna start right here through this firewall, and you'll just pull it up out of there. But of course, you will have to take that harness off of this computer right here, and then I believe this ground is also connected to this harness, so you'll have to take that out too. That 4-cylinder harness is probably, I think it comes all the way around here and stuff like that. But from what I remember, you do not have to take anything out of this firewall on this side. Then when you get that V8 harness in, you're gonna slide it down just like the 4-cylinder was in there. And then this harness runs over here. And then you have 2 relays over here. One is for the fuel pump, and then another is for something else. I can't remember. But I feel like you all get the gist of that by now from what I explained. When it comes to putting a clutch in the car, you have hundreds of options of brands that you can choose from. You can go to eBay, Summit. It really don't matter. If you decide that you are gonna get a clutch from eBay, I would probably get a King Cobra clutch, and they have them in different stages. So right here, you can see that they basically have a kit, a flywheel, a pressure plate, a disc, the spline tool, throwout bearing, and a pilot bearing, all for $184. They have more kits on here. I mean, it really doesn't matter what brand you use, but I got a pretty good life from the set that I had before I upgraded. I will probably start with a stage 2 clutch, especially if you have something with mild modifications on it. Now, if you're making, I don't know, 250 wheel to 300 horsepower, the stage 2 is probably where you're gonna wanna be at. If you're making more than that, I would probably go stage 3 or 4. I do gotta warn you guys that the higher the stage of clutches you go up on, the more aggressive it's gonna be. Okay, motor mounts and motors. Motor mounts, you can't use them from a 4-cylinder. And as far as a motor goes, you have so many options, especially if you're going with a carburetor. But for the EFI guys, if you don't want to just completely build it from the ground up, you can always find them from, of course, a Fox body. Also have Ford Explorers you can get them from. Now, it'd be slightly different because the spark plugs would not be for a Fox body. If you have to get spark plugs, you'll have to get them for a Ford Explorer because they'll have GT40 heads on them. A lot of options for that. You can go to eBay, Marketplace, or if you have the knowledge on putting the motor together yourself, then, I mean, more power to you. Aluminum radiator and electric fans is not necessary, but I mean, since you're already there, I would just put them in. You don't necessarily have to, but it will cool your car better. And I will also get I would say 180-degree thermostat. 165 is okay, but I mean, you don't necessarily have to go that low. That would basically be all of the main things that you need to do the swap on the Fox body. A lot of applications, the belt will not always be the same size, especially if you're not going with the small pump and you're doing away with the tensioner pulley. I would recommend measuring out that belt that you need. That's it, man. So I believe you can actually do this relatively cheap. If you know where to get cheap parts from, that will work just fine on these cars. Or I forget, headers. I mean, you can get them from eBay or Summit Racing. So if you are keeping stock heads on it and you want to put a cam in it, most of the times you don't have to degree the cam, especially if you're not running something, I would say 530 lift or more. Easiest thing to do is to run it straight up. And what I mean when I say straight up is line them up dot to dot on the timing chain set. Also, if you plan on doing a swap, put in the comments that you're doing a swap, and I would like to be updated on that kind of stuff. But I will have more content coming soon. Please subscribe and hit that like button.